Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Monday, August 8th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle flying solo today. It was such a big day for Ohio State football yesterday. 2 practices. We interviewed Urban Meyer. We interviewed JT Barrett. Let's just cut to the chase and talk about the highlights from yesterday. Starting with the freshman practice in the morning, there's no doubt that Nick Bosa absolutely looks the part. In fact, we're kind of joking around amongst the media contingency that it looks like Joey Bosa never left. He just shrank an inch. I mean, Nick Bosa looks exactly like him, the way he carries his arms, the way he walks, the way he goes through drills. Urban Meyer said the red shirt is already off Nick Bosa. Not going to be a starter unless Sam Hubbard or Tyquan Lewis get hurt. Those guys are entrenched, and rightfully so, but Nick Bosa is going to play a lot, it sounds like, as that number 3 defensive end. They can even move him inside on passing downs to defensive tackle. So if you weren't already excited about Nick Bosa, get excited. It doesn't seem like the knee is a problem. He had the torn ACL, of course, his senior year of high school. He looks the part and then some. Another guy that looks the part is Ben Victor. I thought he might redshirt this year because I thought he might not be physically strong enough. Well, he's filled out. He definitely looks physically strong enough, and he's every bit of 6'4". He looks like he could be a star eventually. I also thought another reason he might redshirt is there's so much depth at wide receiver. Not a lot of experience. In fact, a ton of inexperience, but a lot of bodies there. Guys like Torrance Gibson and KJ Hill that didn't even get a chance to play last year. So I thought Ben Victor might redshirt. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't know if he's going to play a lot this year. But I do not expect that he will redshirt. I think he's one of those guys that are going to try and get out there. Malcolm Pridgen is another guy that really caught my eye yesterday at practice. I mean, this is a kid that every bit of 6'8", 315 pounds, and I don't think Urban Meyer would have brought him here unless he had intentions of Malcolm Pridgen playing right away. Now, whether that means he's going to be the 6th man of the offensive line and rotate in, or perhaps he will beat out Isaiah Prince for the right tackle job, or if he doesn't win the right tackle job, perhaps Malcolm Pridgen could battle with Michael Jordan for a starting guard job. But man, I do not think they brought him here to sit the bench. I think Malcolm Pridgen's either going to be a starter or that number 6 offensive lineman that they're going to rotate in there. He definitely looks good. I mean, he's big, but he looks like he has no body fat. He looks like he's a basketball player that's still very strong. So he's going to be a fun guy to watch. He looks like a future NFL player. Jordan Fuller, another true freshman that's going to play right away. He's so fluid out there. I can see why they're starting him at corner, even though he's 6'2", 200 pounds. You would think that's a safety, right? And I still think he'll be a safety later in his career, but I can see why they're starting him at corner. Jordan Fuller, very fluid. He'll help out on special teams. He'll help as a backup defensive back. So another guy that's going to play right away. And there's so many other guys that are going to play, but I just want to mention one more guy. Keandre Jones had his first practice as a Buckeye today. Another guy that just gets rave reviews from everybody, and I can see why. He flies around out there. So a lot of true freshmen are going to play this year. Now, as I'm sure many of you will remember, back on signing day, Urban Meyer said he wanted 18 of these true freshmen from the 2016 class to play right away. 18 true freshmen. And I had a chance to ask him after practice about the true freshmen, and he's very high on this group. But I asked him, is 18 still the goal? And he kind of laughed and said, yeah. But then he followed it up with, he said, yeah, a couple times. Yeah, that's still the goal. Then he follows it up with, it's not going to happen. And we're not going to have that many, but, he kind of joked about it. So Urban knows they're not going to have 18, but I think he wants to have at least 12 out there. That's just me opining. He didn't give me a number, but I think we're going to see about 12 true freshmen this year play, and that's a lot considering the fact that only 4 true freshmen played last year. And that leads right into something else Urban Meyer said that I found very interesting when we spoke with him yesterday after practice. He said last year's freshman class, while talented and while a lot of those guys have now matured, he said overall it was a very immature group, and that's why only 4 of them played. He also said another factor was they had such talent in front of them. Maybe some of those guys thought there was no chance they were going to play. So it's much easier to get motivated when you have a chance to play, and Urban did point that out. But I did find it interesting. He said last year's recruiting class, the 2015 class, just lacked maturity, and he didn't name names, but probably guys like Torrance Gibson, Mike Weber, guys like that. Sounds like they have now grown up, and especially a guy like Mike Weber, Urban has nothing but good things to say about him. So that's a reason we only saw 4 true freshmen play last year. We thought obviously the biggest reason was all the talent in front of them, but it sounds like a lot of those guys just weren't mentally ready to play. They were still immature. A few more notes here from yesterday, and then we'll end the show. I asked Urban if there's a chance Ohio State might rotate on the offensive line, at least to start the year. And he at first kind of said, yeah. And I asked him a follow-up question, or do you want, a solid starting five from day one? And he said, of course, he hopes to have a solid starting five on the offensive line from day one, but it sounds like he is not ruling out the possibility that perhaps those first couple games you could see Pridgen and Prince rotate, or maybe somebody else rotate, maybe Pridgen and Michael Jordan, or Michael Jordan and somebody else at guard. We'll see how it plays out. They know they have 3 spots solidified: Pat Elflein at center, Billy Price at one of the guard spots, and then Jamarco Jones, a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, at left tackle. And so that's great. You have 3 of the spots solidified. That just leaves 2 more, and I think with all the bodies they have and all the talent they have, they're going to find 2 good starters, to fill out that group. It's probably going to be Michael Jordan at guard, as everybody knows, and then either Pridgen or Prince at right tackle. So I think, they're going to have a good offensive line this year, and I think it helps a lot that Greg Studrawa was brought in as offensive line coach. He can focus on the O-line. They kept Jim Cordell around as grad assistant. That's huge. He can also help with the O-line from the field, and then that allows Ed Warner to go up to the press box with Tim Beck like he did the last 2 games of the season. So, but they didn't have Greg Studrawa then, so it's even better. Not only are they going into year 2 of Warner and Beck together and those guys in the box finally, you also have Studrawa on the field. So I think the offensive coaching staff is going to be much more on the same page this year. Final couple of things. The new motto this year, they love mottos over there at Ohio State. They always have new mottos: the chase, the land of the wolves, and all this stuff. The new one is the edge. Urban talked a lot about the edge. And the edge basically is where average stops and elite begins. And Urban says there's a fine line between that, because a lot of guys can be very good, but they don't, for whatever reason, they just can't get to that elite spot. So they kind of end up average, even though they're not that far away from being elite. They're just average. And he used the example that he used, I think that we all can relate to, is Steve Miller. Steve Miller, highly rated recruit, didn't really do anything his first 3 years in the program. Never redshirted, just hardly played. 2011, 2012, 2013, hardly played. Then Noah Spence gets suspended and then suspended again. All of a sudden, Steve Miller is a starter as a senior, and the light bulb went off. And Urban Meyer used that as an example. Now, was Steve Miller really elite that year? I think we could maybe argue he was not, but he definitely stepped up. And Urban used that as an example of a guy, really buying in and, walking that edge and crossing the edge from being average to elite. So that's really what they're pressing to these guys. All of you can be average, you can be elite, and it's about crossing that line, crossing that edge. So that's the motto you're going to hear a lot from Urban and the rest of the coaches and the players this year, is the edge. Urban also said there's a very fine line of getting all the young players live reps in practice, but keeping them healthy. And this is something all coaches wrestle with. There's no doubt about it, whether it's high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches. How much actual hitting do you want to do in practice? Because you have to do that to get your guys ready, but you also need healthy bodies when the games roll around. And this year more than ever, Urban feels like they need to do a lot of live action in practice to get these young guys ready. At the same time, he wants a healthy team, at least, as much as they can be healthy. So he said, quote, "It's the most time I've ever spent on practice schedules." He's really trying to figure out how to walk that fine line of practicing these guys hard, having some live drills, live tackling, but making sure these guys don't get too banged up. So I found that interesting. And the last thing real quick, Urban Meyer's very high on Dontre Wilson. Now maybe he's just trying to prop him up, but I don't think this is lip service. He just has, a certain look in his eye when he talks about Dontre Wilson. He feels like the light is going to go on for Dontre Wilson as a senior, and that might not even be fair to say the light goes on, because Dontre Wilson, as Urban pointed out, has dealt with a broken foot the last 2 seasons. It wiped out the last half of his sophomore year, the national championship season. He actually caught a touchdown pass at Michigan State that year after breaking his foot in that same game. And it wiped out most of last year. He was able to come back here and there, but that foot just lingered. I think he had to have 2 surgeries on it eventually, the initial surgery and then another one. Hopefully that doesn't linger. If he's able to stay healthy, it sounds like Dontre Wilson could finally, be that guy that everybody hoped he would be, when he had all the hype coming in. We'll see. I think, I'll wait till, I see it before I believe it. But I think Dontre Wilson is definitely going to be, the number 2 H-back behind Curtis Samuel, assuming Curtis Samuel stays at H-back and is not the starting running back. But if Mike Weber is the starting running back and Curtis Samuel is the starting H-back, I think Dontre Wilson is going to play a relatively big role. He'll be that number 2 H-back, maybe play a little bit of running back. Urban keeps mentioning Dontre Wilson might play running back. I doubt he's going to play that much there. I think he's going to be mostly an H-back. But the point of the matter is Dontre Wilson physically looks good. He's 198 pounds. I think the foot is healthy. He's a senior. He's got a great attitude, and Urban seems very high on him. So those are a few of the highlights from yesterday. We could go on and on, really. There was so much stuff. Keep it locked to Bucknuts. The Buckeyes are practicing again today, but there is no media availability. They're practicing tomorrow, and there is media availability. We will be there in the morning filming practice, at least the first 30 minutes of practice. We'll have pictures, videos, bolts, stories for you tomorrow. We're interviewing some players and some assistant coaches tomorrow, so keep it locked to Bucknuts. We'll have all of that for you tomorrow morning. Thanks again for tuning into the show. I am Dave Biddle, and hope everybody has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.